there's a significant problem. Clarence Thomas absolutely is completely corrupt. When you see that ProPublican story where now attending Koch network fundraisers, his wife getting money essentially under the table, you can't tell me she's not having conversations with him about Supreme Court cases, flying on private jets, yacht rides, things along those lines. How in the hell can anybody trust the Supreme Court that literally is being purchased by billionaire conservatives?
Trust them. And not only can you not trust them, the problem with this is we're talking about the branch of government that has to most be above any appearance of impropriety, right? These are the people who are calling the balls and the strikes, so to speak. So if they're slanted, that puts everything into the context that you can't trust anything. And here's the reality of it. I like Senator Warnock a great deal, but I feel like a lot of the conversation was the same rhetoric we hear. And the reality is a lot of people don't want to be involved in government for two reasons, or rather vote for two reasons. One, we say the United States is a democracy. It's not. It's an oligarchy, right? There's a small number of people who really run things, and the rest of us are left out. And with Congress, they're not passing bills that stop school shootings. It's hard to pay for your bills at the grocery store. The gas pump is expensive. It's hard to get health care and to pay for it. So on the ground, I feel like your average American feels like their concerns are not really being met because all we see is political pageantry. And I say all of that to say the same is the truth with the Supreme Court. Now, if you look at the way our government was founded, the Supreme Court was never intended to be the strongest branch. In fact, one of its first major decisions gave it the power to do what it does now, which is review the constitutionality of the laws. So for them to be very clearly slanted, we obviously need to change something, and we need to do something differently, particularly where that branch has developed the outsized power to decide on the ground what happens to our lives, right? The healthcare decisions we can make, who we can marry, where we can live, all these kinds of things are in their hands. So when you have somebody who is very clearly slanted one way, then you cannot expect that there's ever going to be a fair shot when you come up to argue. And you're not wrong. There's no way that Ginny Thomas is not talking to him about the cases coming before him, as are the people who are sending Alito on these private jets and to these private events into Italy. So, the reality is there's corruption afoot, but it's particularly insidious because that's the branch that is supposed to be most above the fray, and the branch who seems to be most resistant now to putting in ethics to hold itself accountable.
Michael, this is a ProPublican story. Go to my iPad. You see right here, Clarence Thomas secretly participated in Koch network donor events. And you go into the story, you'll see here, it says on January 25th, 2018, dozens of private jets descended on Palm Springs International Airport. Some of the richest people in the country were arriving for the annual Winter Donor Summit of the Koch Network, the political organization founded by libertarian billionaires Charles and David Koch. A long weekend of strategizing, relaxation in the California sun, and high-dollar fundraising lay ahead. Just after 6 p.m., a Gulfstream G200 jet touched down on the tarmac. One of the Koch network's most powerful allies was on board, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. During the summit, the justice went to a private dinner for the network's donors. Thomas has attended Koch donor events at least twice over the years, according to interviews with 3 former network employees and 1 major donor. The justice was brought in to speak, staffers said, in the hopes that such access would encourage donors to continue giving. Michael, there's without a doubt Clarence Thomas should be resigning from the Supreme Court. He is completely compromised.
Absolutely. Yes, he should resign. But also, we have to really connect the dots with this and understand the role that Leonard Leo plays, understand the role that not just the Koch brothers, but when you look at somebody like Mitch McConnell, who blocked 103 federal judge nominations from President Barack Obama after Republicans took back control of the Senate in 2014. And then Mitch McConnell blocked Merrick Garland, who was Obama's Supreme Court nominee in 2016. And, there's talk back and forth about expanding the courts, things like this. But what was really, really important for people to understand is that Donald Trump got 3 Supreme Court justice nominations confirmed, okay? These are conservatives, and this is one of the reasons why you have so many people sticking with Trump, because he said he would only nominate Supreme Court justices who would overturn Roe versus Wade. He basically got that done. And we have to understand what happens, why voting for president is so important, but also the Senate, because the president nominates federal judges and Supreme Court justices, which right now are lifetime appointments, but the Senate confirms them. Okay, so a lot of people don't understand how all these dots are connected, and they keep seeing these negative things taking place. This is not as difficult to remedy as many people think. We got to vote better people in the office and vote more competent people in the office, and vote criminals out of office, regardless of whether they're Democrat or Republican.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.
Folks, Justice Clarence Thomas's financial life has become a topic of interest since his relationships with billionaires were discovered. The folks at ProPublican have been doing a fantastic job with their reporting. They have a new article out. It's called A Delicate Matter. Clarence Thomas's private complaints about money sparked fears he would resign. It is a deep dive into Thomas's financial history, from asking for a salary increase for Supreme Court justices to personal loans. Joshua Kaplan wrote the piece, along with several others with ProPublica. He joins us now from New York City. Joshua, glad to have you here. I mean, all of these stories have been fascinating. The reason I think this one is really fascinating is because you lay out Thomas going to Georgia to give a speech and writing back with a member of Congress where he actually complained about the salary of the Supreme Court justices. And this congressman essentially came back and said, we got to make sure that Clarence is comfy financially so he doesn't resign.
Yeah, no, I mean, these documents we found give a really rare window into how Thomas was thinking about and talking about his finances in this really important period in his tenure. Kind of relatively early, he'd been on the court for about 10 years. And this was when his relationships with these wealthy benefactors were really starting to blossom. And yeah, I mean, that conversation with the congressman you mentioned, so he was flying back on the plane back from a conference. He happened to be sitting next to the congressman, and he told him Congress should give the Supreme Court justices a raise, or else one or more will resign soon, maybe even within a year. And the congressman, left that afraid that Thomas was about to step down.
What is crazy here is, and I don't understand why this is not even a bigger deal, because all of a sudden, let's just be clear. It's not like Clarence Thomas was friends with all of these conservative billionaires before he joined the Supreme Court. Yes, he was conservative. Yes, he served in the administration of President George H.W. Bush. But all of a sudden, now we're buddies. Now we're going to conferences. And now they're picking up travel. And then it becomes, he gets this RV and he's complaining about money. Dude, why didn't you buy a $267,000 RV? It's called living within your means.
Yeah, no, and it's, it's like, I think it's really important to keep in mind that most of these relationships with the gentleman who bought him, these kind of billionaire political donors who've bought him private school tuition and private jet flights around the world, luxury vacations. Vast majority of these people he met after he became a justice. And it's it's amazing. I mean, some of these gifts were coming from people he'd met, practically just met, a year before, giving him expensive gifts. And, we've discovered a lot about the gifts themselves this year, but how and why this all happened, there's still a lot we don't know. What led so many people to offer him money and other gifts over the years, and what led him to accept all of that. And that's why I think looking at what he was saying in this period is kind of crucial context.
Right. And again, somebody who he just met just gives him $5,000 to help pay for the private school tuition of his nephew or great nephew or whatever it was. And then, this donor, like earlier story, we're just gonna fix up his mother's house, and you know what? We're just gonna buy the house, and then you can just go ahead and pay us rent. I mean, I don't care if this was a member of Congress, if this was a governor, if this was a state representative, a state senator, if this was an alderman, a city council, or a county commissioner, or a school board, they would be investigated for corruption. Yet this is the highest court on the land, and it's like, no, we self-govern, and no need to look into us. We can handle it ourselves. Yeah,
I mean, it was, I didn't realize this really until we started digging into all of this, but the Supreme Court has, less oversight, less accountability mechanisms, and less rules about things like ethics than really any other part of the federal government. I mean, I don't think most Americans think of Congress as the paragon of ethics, but, most of these gifts that Thomas has accepted, even from a friend, a congressman would need explicit, formal pre-approval from an ethics committee. Gifts over $50 are banned for congresspeople, with some exceptions that have a process around that. But at the Supreme Court, there's basically no rules governing what gifts they can take.
So we have rules for the executive branch. We have rules for the legislative branch, but there are no rules for the judicial branch. I'm sorry, there are rules for the judicial branch for all other federal judges except the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court, I mean, they just implemented the first set of ethics rules, I think last month, for the first time in the history of the country. They did not, however, create an enforcement mechanism for that. So what that actually is going to look like in practice very much remains to be seen.
Wow, that is absolutely crazy. What else in your reporting caused you to go, man, what the hell?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, it was like over the course of this year, I mean, I think the scope of it was amazing. We're talking millions of dollars in value, likely, from a whole range of people, who are massive donors to conservative causes. And then there's also, something it's easy to forget is, relationships with political groups that, we did a story earlier this year about Thomas secretly going to Koch network donor events.
Yes.
These, being flown there on a private jet and essentially being a fundraising draw at a dinner for top donors to the Koch network. And he kept that all secret. And we talked to even, lower court federal judges who said, if I did something like this as a less powerful judge, I'd have gotten a letter commencing a disciplinary proceeding. But at the Supreme Court, even with the new vague rules that are in place, as far as it's, even now it seems that if Clarence Thomas thinks that is okay, then it is okay. There's not really anyone looking over any of the justices' shoulders on ethical questions.
Absolutely. Questions from my panel. Joy, you're first.
Hi. So a couple of things. Can you just draw it out for the layperson out here? What exactly do you think happened? Because I know what I think happened. He put the word out and they responded. What do you think happened? How did all of these folks start giving him money all of a sudden?
I mean, it's a excellent and really important question. And, honestly, I mean, I still don't know. There's no, I don't want to act like we've fully cracked the code here, and we're still very much reporting on this. So, I mean, we don't know that Thomas ever went to one of these billionaires and told them this. What we do know now, though, is that right in this period before the gifts really got going, Thomas was privately, and they haven't really become public until now, pushing for ways to make more money on multiple fronts, on multiple occasions. And he was, and whether that's pushing for a higher salary, trying to get a ban lifted that prevented judges from giving paid speeches on the side. And in some of these conversations, he was raising the specter of possibly leaving the court. And there were worries, like the chatter about this was circulating in Congress and in conservative legal circles, that Thomas was dissatisfied with his financial situation. And there was a worry among, we talked to the former Senate Majority Leader, the Republican, top Republican in the Senate at the time. He told us there was a real fear right then about that Thomas or other justices would step down. So is that what motivated someone like Harlan Crow, the Dallas billionaire? I can't say. But it's valuable context to be sure.
Larry?
You can't say, but we can. We know what happened.
Well, listen, we can assume, we can speculate. As they say, it's a whole bunch of smoke there. It may not be a raging fire, but it's a damn lot of smoke. Larry, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Roland. First of all, I really enjoyed your reporting and really enjoyed this article what ProPublican's been doing about, discussing what's happening in the court, particularly with Justice Thomas. Can you talk a little bit about, obviously you guys have been writing these pieces for the last several months, highlighting this kind of essentially kind of a money grab that I would describe. But let's talk about what is what Clarence Thomas doing unique, or have you guys looked at not just current justices, but in the past? Has this been going part of an ongoing pattern that the American public has been missing in terms of justices and their relationship and how they've been funded, trips, et cetera, by wealthy donors?
Yeah, I mean, there's two answers to that question. So first, to just start with what's known, there's no evidence that anyone's ever done this at the scale that Thomas has in terms of, living expenses and the just sheer quantity and luxury of what he has taken. But there are other justices that have taken gifts that I think some people would really raise questions about. So Ruth Bader Ginsburg took a trip around Israel paid for by a billionaire. Stephen Breyer, another liberal, took a private jet flight from a wealthy Democratic donor to a wedding in Nantucket. And Breyer and Ginsburg, they both disclosed that. So that's why we know about those gifts. Alito, though, similarly to Thomas, we found at least one example of a pretty extravagant gift he took and kept secret. So he flew to Alaska on the private jet of this billionaire who repeatedly had cases at the Supreme Court that Alito never recused himself from, and they went on this luxury fishing trip together. So that's the first answer. The second answer is, because Thomas didn't disclose any of this, we found it out through a lot of hard work, and it's possible that it's a broader problem than has come into public view yet. We've been reporting actively on all of the justices, and we haven't found anything on this scale yet. And I don't know if we will, but we are very much still looking.
Mustafa.
Well, congratulations to you and the ProPublica family for this excellent reporting and bringing this to light. We should also be equally focused on how do we mitigate these types of things from happening in the future based upon the conversations that you've had with probably numbers of people. What are the suggestions that need to be implemented to make sure this type of behavior does not continue, for whether it is for Clarence Thomas or current Supreme Court justices or future Supreme Court justices?
Yeah, I mean, I think There's a lot of ideas happening, floating around right now. I mean, one that I think has a lot of experts in this, a lot of judges think is would be really valuable is having some sort of oversight mechanism, because that's something we have for really the rest of the government. Inspectors general who can look into allegations of wrongdoing or potential systemic problems, or some sort of enforcement body that can actually, make sure that these principles are not just norms, but actually something that people have to abide by. And then there's also, stricter rules is something that gets talked about a lot. And again, this is something where not just the Supreme Court, but I mean, the judiciary as a whole is pretty unique in how vague its ethics rules are. So it's the rules for judges are really lofty. It's you have to kind of at all times conduct yourself in a way that will encourage impartial. Oh, Jesus Christ! Sorry about that.
Just keep talking. Don't worry about it.
So you have to at all times conduct yourself in a way that will encourage the public's faith in the integrity of the Supreme Court. And you can't have even the appearance of impropriety. And with the lower courts, there's an enforcement mechanism. So if you go afoul of that, you can be disciplined. But most other parts of government have actual rules, like you can't take a gift from someone you just met that's extremely expensive. And so things like gift bans, or at least heavy gift regulations, are something that could be implemented.
Oh, absolutely. All right, Joshua, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Keep up the reporting. We'll be looking forward to more of it.
Somebody's killing poor people, and it's going on.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties have waged war on poor people and low-wage workers. And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for more revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready.
And we won't be silent anymore.
Trying to see how much money I have on hand that could buy Clarence Thomas. If y'all want to know how much it costs to rent a Negro, Clarence has made it perfectly clear. There's a group, y'all, out there that actually looked at the campaign disclosure forms, and they broke all of this stuff down, and it's called Fix the Court. And so what's interesting about this, and when I say y'all, they broke it down, check this out. They compiled all of the gifts, some 672 gifts given to Supreme Court justices over the last 20 years. Anthony, go to my iPad. A total of 672 gifts totaling $6.5 million. Y'all see that first column? That's Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas has accepted 4 million of the 6.5 million. Y'all, look at the other justices. Scalia, Alito, Stevens, Ginsburg, Roberts, Kennedy, O'Connor, Sotomayor, Breyer, Rehnquist, Jackson, Gorsuch, Kagan, Barrett, Souter, Kavanaugh. Clarence Thomas has accepted more money than all of them combined. Combined. He's taken double what everybody else has gotten. This man, can we just say, Clarence Thomas, hello, rent a Negro. Rent a justice. I need everybody to understand. This man right here is bought and paid for. Bought and paid for. He actually wants us to believe that, he's impartial to decisions when he is accepting free gifts and travel. Then after they dropped the report, my bad. I read the language wrong. I didn't realize I was supposed to cite some of the stuff my wife was given.
My bad. Yes, sorry about that. Then he updated his form today, acknowledging more trips that the billionaire Harlan Crow has given him. This is a tweet right here. Again, he took some trips in 2019. Now, mind you, ProPublican has been kicking his behind for months, and now all of a sudden, after the story comes out, he now, oh, my bad, damn, my bad, dog. There was some trips in 2019 when Harlan Crow flew me out. My bad, yeah, I got flued out by the billionaires, and so yeah, I don't know how those things just escaped my memory of oh yeah, that's right. Let me go ahead and report those things. So my bad. I didn't. Here's actually what he said, y'all. This is pretty funny. 2011, Justice Thomas didn't disclose wife's income due to a misunderstanding of the filing instructions. How is your ass one of 9 Supreme Court justices, and you supposed to know case law? You supposed to be at the top of the legal heap, knowing all of this stuff, and your simple Simon ass wants us to believe, oh, my bad, I misunderstood the instructions. We ain't talking about plugging in a toaster. No, he wants us to believe, oh, I ain't realized I was supposed to list my wife's income on my financial disclosure form. Y'all know my wife, Miss Daisy, the one who was trying to overthrow the government, who's a crazy right-winger. So check this out. 2023, Thomas, quote, going back, inadvertently failed to realize a real estate deal need to be disclosed. It's called a financial disclosure form. Then, my bad, today, he inadvertently omitted the free luxury trips. I don't know what happened. It just slipped my mind that I was on that private jet and I was flued out to these luxury trips. I don't know what happened. I just been so busy with all of these rulings. Look, between all the rulings and my wife trying to overthrow the government, it just slipped my mind. I just didn't realize what was going on. Matt, this is the most corrupt Supreme Court justice. Abe Fortas got $160,000 from a rich friend and was forced to resign from the Supreme Court. Clarence, darling Nikki Thomas, has gotten $4 million in gifts, and we supposed to believe he's impartial.
There are a few terms that come to mind. The first is get it how you live. The second term is who gonna check me, boo? Because that's really the question here. The Supreme Court does what it wants, right? I mean, we've heard about the recent fights to even implement any kind of ethics. I'll give you an example. When I was an assistant DA, I would never let anybody pay for my lunch. Because under the Texas rules, even though I could accept that, I never wanted there to ever be a question about impartiality, and I never wanted to be accused of accepting a gift. It is crazy. It is downright corrupt. It is Tammany Hall tactics, frankly, that a Supreme Court justice would continue to take all of these gifts and then lie about it. Oh, I didn't realize I couldn't do that. Inadvertently failed to realize. I'm glad you made the point you did earlier, because they go through the minutia of arcane legal arguments, novel arguments. Now, I don't like his positions on most things, right? But he finds a way to reason through some very difficult legal reasoning, but somehow cannot declare everything that he knows he's gotten as a gift. And really getting down to it, what's so heinous about this is that this is about as emblematic as it gets about how the other half lives and about how the justice system is a farce in a lot of respects. The people at the top of the heap making the decisions that control every court in the United States of America are accepting money under the table, essentially, from people who appear in front of them, which immediately calls into question any of their rulings, right? Because that's the whole thing you hear. John Quayle can speak to this. We talk about it in the law a lot, quote, the air of impropriety. Well, this stinks of impropriety. If I appear in front of you and I've paid for something that you have not declared, and ultimately I've given you that gift and you rule in my favor, then the question is, did you really reason in the way you thought was appropriate, or did you reason to hook the homies up? This is really telling of a huge institutional issue. And I mean, in reading and preparing for the segment, I saw that Justice Jackson and others have received Beyonce tickets and other kinds of things. And look, I like the idea that ideologically we know where she lies, but none of them should accept gifts.
Right.
Because their rulings are immediately called into question.
Right.
And those rulings have an immediate effect on our lives. Like when I walk out here today out of my office and I get pulled over by an officer, he or she is going to be bound by Supreme Court precedent. The idea that that precedent can be bought or sold by the highest bidder calls everything into question. And it's just heinous that it's continuing to happen and that he's continuing to be dishonest about it with the I didn't know I needed to disclose that. Usually judges do the opposite, and they go very hard in trying to be transparent about things because they don't want to be called to the carpet on this. But with the Supreme Court, since there's nobody above them, they've had no onus to do that.
There is no way in hell, John Quayle, that the Supreme Court can govern themselves. No, that's gone. That whole, well, you know what, over the years, this is how it's been done. No, you cannot be an equal branch of government with the judiciary and the executive and you self-govern. I'm sorry. You have standards in Congress. You've got standards in the executive branch. There's got to be standards here when it comes to the federal judiciary. And in fact, here's what's crazy. There are standards for other federal judges. But the Supreme Court is like, oh, yeah, nah, we above everybody else. No, this man is bought and paid for. Ain't no other reason Harlan Crow just giving money to Clarence Thomas. Let me go ahead. Can we just go ahead and just be as frank as possible? If a dude wrote to a woman and say, baby, listen up. I'm going to fix your mama's house. I'm going to go ahead and pay for all of the trimmings and the fixing of your mama's house. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and just buy your mama's house. And she ain't got to send me no rent. Oh, baby, you want that RV? Oh, I'm just going to go ahead and pay off that $270,000 loan on your RV. Oh, baby, I'm just going to fly you out. I'm going to put you on a private jet, and I'm going to fly you here and here. I'm going to fly you here and there, and we're going to fly you all over. I'm going to give you all kind of other gifts. I ain't doing all that out the goodness of my heart. There's an expectation that comes with me hooking your ass up.
That's with most things in life, right? As they say, nothing is for free. Or I think that's an old saying, but I think that you're absolutely right. I think that I think that these disclosures now, after they have examined these over the years, there can be no more self-governance. I think part of the reasoning behind they can govern themselves is that the chance of people's cases coming into contact with them is rare. But at this juncture, when you've accepted that amount of gifts, there's no way that you don't have any conflicts with the cases that have come before the court. You know, in Georgia, a judge can't even receive a gift over $100, right? So you're saying $100 on the local level, but the Supreme Court justices can accept millions of dollars. That is absolutely insane. And frankly, I think the time to change that is now.
He is bought. Listen, Michael, let's just go ahead and straight. This right here is these billionaires to Clarence Thomas. They like, we gonna make, like Clarence, we gonna make it rain, Clarence. They specking that ass. We gonna make it rain. Let's just call it what it is. He is bought and paid for.
Absolutely.
And he's doing the legal lap dance for Harlan Crow and these billionaires. Let's just call this thing what it is.
Absolutely. And ruling in cases against African Americans as well. But you take this a step further, Clarence Thomas could have been nullified if more people in 2016 had voted for Hillary Clinton, because Donald Trump got 3 Supreme Court justices. And let's take another step further. These were ultra-conservative Supreme Court justices that Donald Trump got confirmed. They were given to him that came from lists from the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society, as well as the 226 federal judges that Donald Trump got confirmed as well. So people, a lot of times, we don't connect the dots in how we got here, right? If Hillary Clinton had become president, she would have gotten 3 Supreme Court justices, so it would be 5-4 liberal Supreme Court as opposed to 6-3 conservative Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court justices and federal judges are one of the lasting effects of a presidency. Clarence Thomas was nominated. Clarence Thomas was appointed by.
But listen, I get all of that. I get all that history. Forget all that history. This man is making legal decisions that has a direct impact on the billionaires who's giving him free trips, period. Yeah. That's what's happening right now. Right now. Right. This man Chief Justice John Roberts should be far more aggressive in holding this man accountable. And frankly, Roberts has been silent. He is allowing his court to be corrupted. It's corrupted by Clarence Thomas. It's corrupted by Sam Alito, period.
Well, Roberts and Alito, they served in the Reagan administration. They served in the...
Yeah, but I'm talking about right now. Right now, they are making decisions today that's impacting it's impacting these billionaires. There's no way around it. And this whole, there's no direct case. No. We ain't buying that. We ain't buying it.
It's corruption, but that's why they were put there in the first place.
Yeah, but it's corrupt. But this is where Senator Dick Durbin of the Senate Judiciary Committee needs to be a lot more aggressive, and he's been far too passive allowing these things to happen. 20 seconds, I got to go to break.
That's what I was coming to. New York Times, there's an article from today, June 7th. Senate Democrats face escalating calls for broader investigation into High Court.
Well, they need to hurry the hell up because they too damn slow and they too passive on this whole thing.
Somebody's killing poor people, and it's going on.
When COVID happened, poor people were dying at a rate already of 800 people a day. Before COVID, if you went to a funeral every single day, it would take you 600 years to attend all the funerals of the people who will die from the ravages of policy violence, poverty, and low wages in America in just 1 year. It would take you 2 years and 19 days to go to all of the funerals of the people that will die today, and oftentimes silence. Nobody talks about this political genocide, but we are determined today to remember their death and be a resurrection of voting power and voice power like never before.
Economic justice and saving this democracy are deeply connected. We, as a nation, must listen to the demands of the poor, who are pushing and will continue to push political candidates and elected leaders to lift from the bottom so that everybody can rise.
We are the poor, the marginalized, and the underpaid. And we are taking one step forward to say that everybody has a right to live.
Poverty is not the fault of those who are impoverished. It is caused by those who make the policy.
There are over 135 million poor and low-wage, low-income people in this nation.
The biggest block of potential voters by far is low-income, low-wage voters.
I can't afford medicine. Sometimes I have to skip because of the cost.
The farm worker community is tired of the violence imposed upon us by greed, exclusion, and denial of basic human rights.
Those folk that represented by that casket, poor and low-wage workers who are the most moral people in this country because they go to work every day believing, even though going to work is hazardous to their health.
I'm tired of working 70 to 80 hours a week and still not have money for the necessity of bills. I'm tired of getting sick and not being able to go see the doctor. Having to make a choice to pay between rent or the light bill or food or clothes.
You cannot claim to care about families and a culture of life and then do everything in your power to rob people of equal access to resources and to force them to live in poverty.
Leadership of both parties had waged war on poor people and low-wage workers.
And this government has treated people experiencing poverty, including their military families, with disdainful, deliberate, malicious neglect.
So the truth is that my son died from poverty.
We refuse to accept poverty as the fourth leading cause of death.
The fourth leading cause of death in this, the richest country in the world.
We march today for our children and the generations to come.
And we need to do it with the loudest voices possible, the biggest actions possible.
We will voice our demands and register our vote.
When we stand up and when we stand together, things change.
There is the electorate that is, and then there is the electorate that should be.
34 million eligible poor and low-income voters did not vote in 2016. If just 20% of those voters in swing states were mobilized around an agenda, they could change the political outcome of every election. So we're launching the most massive voter mobilization and turnout campaign in history of poor and low-wage voters, allies, and religious leaders.
People are dying, but we know it doesn't have to be this way. And so we are calling on everyone to join us in this Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival.
We are here, we will be seen, we will be heard, and our power will be felt. We don't need to be an insurrection. We are a resurrection that will be felt across this country. Are you ready? 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 We are a resurrection, and we are ready.
And we won't leave silent anymore.
Why hasn't Clarence Thomas recused himself when his wife was one of the people who was standing with Donald Trump as an insurrectionist on January 6th? That issue right there, Reese, is a problem. And here's the deal. The way these rules are written, only the Supreme Court justice themselves can decide whether they should recuse themselves. This is a problem. The Supreme Court, unlike the executive branch, unlike the legislative branch, criminals can do whatever the hell they want to. This is a fundamental problem, and what they have done is they have basically rewarded Donald Trump, because what we now know is you likely are not going to have that trial before the election, and that's a damn shame.
Right. Let me start off by saying, fuck the illegitimate Supreme Court. Okay, let me start there. But I have to also acknowledge that Clarence Thomas and the Republican conservative right-wing stooges that Trump put on the Supreme Court when he stole two justices, basically one from the Obama administration and using the same rules that disgraceful Mitch McConnell, who's stepping aside now, should not have gotten Amy Coney Barrett on there. But they understand the assignment. They're not there for the good of the country. They're not there to be nonpartisan. They're there to enact a white nationalist agenda. The reality is, in this case, Trump can run, but he can't hide. This is one case where he can have immunity in, but the fact that he's racked up so many damn charges like a degenerate criminal that he is, there's only so much that they can do. So maybe this is their way of kind of paying their penance and trying to sit up there and show some loyalty to the person who got them on the bench. Or maybe they'll kick him in the ass and now say, psych, you're not exempt from this, and try to deter him from even more extreme behavior should he win in 2024. I doubt that's the thought process behind it, but I think we have to come to a point now where we acknowledge that the Supreme Court is not a legitimate institution as long as we have those Republican justices who are able to basically upend our citizenship while protecting a degenerate criminal ex-president like Donald.